Welcome to Two Hypnotherapists Talking with me, Denise Mejia, in Delaware, USA.
And me, Martin Ferber, in Preston, UK.
This weekly podcast is for anyone and everyone who'd like to know more about the fascinating subject of hypnosis and the benefits it offers.
I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and psychotherapist.
I'm a retired medical doctor turned consulting hypnotist.
We are Two Hypnotherapists Talking.
So let's get on with the episode.
Okay, so let's get on with the show. Indeed, Denise, introduce our guest, please.
I will indeed. As we both know, this is the incredible Sarah Buchanan-Smith, who does all sorts of things for us. She's been a real help for both Martin and me in our early part of our business because she specializes in helping people from various backgrounds figure out what the heck to do online and to actually present yourself to the world. So thank you so much for agreeing to be with us, Sarah.
Yeah,
Martin
thanks,
and I were both fascinated by the fact that you hadn't told us that you actually had studied hypnosis at one time. So you knew what we were talking about.
I knew right from the start. That's why I loved working with you both. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're in Edinburgh, right?
Yes, Edinburgh. Yeah. Yes.
Did you choose that intentionally, or was it work related that got you there the first time?
We chose it very intentionally. So, husband born and bred in Edinburgh. We were living in London. We had 3 little babies, and taking them across Clapham Common in the dark on winter's nights to school was pretty grim. And it was kind of 2007, 2008, and London was all a bit, getting a bit scary. So yeah, no, we just decided that we wanted our babies to grow up up in Scotland, can maybe give them a bit more grounding.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we brought them up north, and my husband was determined he wasn't going to have Sassenach kids, so they had to be re-educated to become Scots. So yeah, I think the job's done. I think the first 2 are certainly Scottish. Sandy, my youngest, has got another couple of years until he graduates from Scots school, but yeah.
Okay,
he'll be fine.
I'm fascinated by the fact that your eldest son is now taking his gap year and gone to Australia.
He's gone to Australia, with his tartan trews. Yeah.
Is he on the one of my nieces had a visa gone from Britain there. She had a year she could work at anything, but she had to be working, and then she has to.
Yeah, he's because he's working in a school, and he's actually got like a full-time job essentially. He was given there was all sorts of like sponsorship or something to do the job. He has to stay in that job. He can't go off and do bar work, and then at the end of the year he has to come home, which is such a shame. He's got to come home to his mum.
But he's loving it.
Oh, he's having the time of his life. I'd say he's just transformed. Out and being outside most of the day, doing something he absolutely loves, and for him, as we being out that school environment that didn't suit him, ironically, we were saying, ironically, now being an assistant teacher, which is bizarre, but it's just so brilliant to see him with that compassionate understanding and the enthusiasm and understanding of the little ones. That he's like a little kind of Pied Piper with his little, because he teaches the little really tiny ones, kind of remedial maths and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's having the time of his life.
All right, well, dare I say I can draw a comparison there, Sarah. Okay, in the work that you do, because you teach with compassion. I know this from being taught by you.
Yeah.
You teach with compassion, and you're also teaching people things on a subject they probably know very little about, like search engine optimization, for example, and you make it easy as ABC. So I think he's got it off you.
Yeah. I mean, and that's really where I've come from. It's like that was right from the very start. I was 100% determined to teach it like I learnt it, because, search engine optimization, meta descriptions, canonical.
Oh, what fun.
Yeah. It's like the dullest, most kind of inaccessible thing you can possibly study. So it was my absolute, I'm so determined to make it as interesting as possible, okay, and now yeah, I try to make it as interesting as possible, but as accessible, because as we know, and this is to kind of around the medical profession, perhaps there's a lot of kind of the kind of God complex, and trying to keep things as complicated and as difficult to understand as possible, so you hold on to that knowledge. And I think from my perspective, it's about sharing everything, and that's what I think the internet's incredible for. The democratization of knowledge is just profound. So my mission is to make the most complicated stuff as accessible and fun to learn as possible.
It's like you say, anything to do with computers or the internet or computer language, anything.
Yeah.
Once you know it, it's relatively easy. It's that fear of learning it. But as you say, there's so many mysteries out there. So many people or organizations will try and convince you that you will never be able to learn this. You must pay us.
You must come and speak to the expert. The sage, the SEO sage. Yes, master. It's like, no, come on. And it's brilliant. I love it. So one of my favorite things is when one of my clients, she was over in Florida, and she'd had this website built for her by some bloke in a black leather swivel chair, and kind of is that kind of tight t-shirt, all that kind of stuff. And he'd bamboozled her with all the lingo, told her she couldn't possibly understand, patted her on the head, dear, no. And it was brilliant. She went back to him and kind of not ripped him to pieces, but gave him this long list of things that were wrong with the website he'd built, and he was just like, and had to go back and fix it all up for her, and she then had an actual website that was working, so and that was just through understanding the language, and I love that. I love being able to empower people with I suppose the knowledge and the power of understanding SEO and all that kind of content marketing side of things.
What in your background led you to that? I mean, I know a little bit about your backstory, but not everybody listening is.
So I think I am one of the most curious people I think you'll ever meet. I love it. My husband hates me for it. I'll tell you about my background in a minute. But so take me to a restaurant and I will order the weirdest, funkiest thing on the menu that I've never heard of, just because it sounds interesting. And so he's like, why don't you just have fish and chips? Why do you have to have boiled sweetbreads? It's like, and I said, because you never know what it might be the most amazing thing in the world. More likely or not, it's going to be disgusting and I'm going to eat your fish and chips, but you never know. So I come at life with this massive, I think, childlike enthusiasm and curiosity, and I always have. So I think that comes from growing up all over the world. I was an expat kid, saw all these different amazing cultures, and then I went into consulting, and as my background after I left university, because I was so interested in business and how it all worked together. But I couldn't stand the idea of working in a job for the rest of my life. I love the idea of projects and moving around and getting to fix new things and play in different areas. So that's kind of, and then the other side of things is I love working out how things work. I failed maths GCSE, okay, and then for whatever, it was so boring, really badly taught, and I did my GCSEs in a year because I came back from living in the States. But I qualified as a management accountant because I was just like, this is so, like, it was so interesting just seeing how all those, like, all the bits kind of came together. And I think that's how I got into SEO, because it was like, I'd been writing a huge, I was in strategic comms, so I was a partner in a strategic comms company. I was setting up the London office. COVID came, job over. Yeah, and I carried on writing, but nothing was getting, all the stuff that I was doing for my clients, my business clients, it wasn't getting found. I was like, God, this is awful. It's like, this is really bad. I'm supposed to be, management consultant, professional writer. I can pretend to be the CEO of companies and write to the investors and tell them how their business, how their investments are doing. I can't get anything seen online. I was like, shit, this is really bad. So that's when I learned all about SEO. Curiosity. How can I get this to work? How can I get these articles to show up on the first page of Google? How can I get these websites to get more traffic? And I think I just started exploring, and I wasn't scared. I think that's another thing, I was just open-minded, and I think, as I say, that almost childlike. It was like, oh, so what's the URL slug then? And oh, that sounds stupid. Why is it called a slug?
Yeah.
All these
and
things.
vaguely uncomfortable out in the garden is what it sounds like.
Yeah. So that's how I've got here, is curiosity. And what did I say? I came out with this thing. I felt very sage. I'm comfortable in confusion. I'm happy there. I'm don't get freaked out.
But you're not swirling in the confusion. You're just saying,
I am. I'm swirling. I swirl as much as anyone. I swirl as much as anyone. I am, vortexing around. So it's like, don't get me wrong, but I'm okay with that. And I think that's actually something that's a real skill. I think as that comes as you get older, is that comfort in not knowing what the hell is going on, because we've been through that cycle how many million times where it ends and it does become clear. So and I think that's perhaps where I bring that to my teaching. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay not to know what you're doing. It's okay. First of all, you've got me by your side, and and you both know that I've got the prize for the most stupid question, because I want people to feel comfortable, in that confusion, sitting there, and it's going to be okay. We'll come out the other end. It just might be like we're going through the car wash at the moment, but it's fine.
Well, I don't know about going through the car wash, Sarah. The metaphor I'd use is you're sort of helping them hop on your surfboard of this wave of confusion, rather than watching them drown.
Yeah. I love it. That it reminds me of, again, a bit like my son, being the lead. I'm at the front of the surfboard. It's okay, guys, it's okay, we'll be right.
So just sort of like going back to hypnotherapy for a moment then, and sort of now we've had the big reveal that you did train in hypnotherapy. But also a lot of your clients that you help with their SEO are hypnotherapists, aren't they? And NLP practitioners. And other kinds of practitioners as well. How do you find working with hypnotherapists then, knowing you've got a background in it yourself?
Well, one of my favorite things about working for myself is being able to choose who I work with. And I value creativity, compassion, and care. That they're all the things that I really love about people. And I think I think hypnotherapy is one of the most profound things that we have. I genuinely do. I really genuinely do. It's so powerful, so important. And so from my business perspective, if I can help a hypnotherapist get their websites showing up on the first page of Google, or their blogs out there showing up and actually being read, and and then that whole sales funnel being kicked off so that they end up taking on new clients, I feel like I'm doing kind of services to the hypnotherapy industry.
Well, you do.
Yes,
you absolutely do.
I believe in it. I believe in it passionately as a tool that we've got. So
but that's it. It's not magic. Yes, I said magic is explained. It's then science, but it isn't us doing something. It's us being trained to know when people can do this for themselves. You teach somebody to do it for themselves. And which means you're in a constant marketing mode because all your clients graduate.
Well, that's true. Damn, fix that one. No. But it's a bit like me. It's like, well, they're on first page Google. Yeah, fine, all right, see, bye. But no, that's life, isn't it? And no, it's great. And what's that saying about knocking somebody paying loads of money for a bloke? Do you remember that story about there's a ship and it's broken down and somebody pays him $1,000 and he just bangs on the side of the ship, and the guy's gone, well, is that all you're going to do? He said, you're not paying me for my time, you're paying me for knowing where to get.
For the 10 years it took to train to do this, not the 10 months it took me
and
to
that's
fix
hypnotherapy. It says,
Yeah.
you're not trained, you're not going to fix the problem, but you're going to get to this, exactly how to get to the source, that thought that you need to help them change everything else.
Yeah. I mean, and this is all it is as well. I always find with hypnotherapy, because we were talking sort of pre-recording about when we have that initial consultation with people.
Yeah.
And I always look out for that light bulb moment with people, because once you explain to them how these thoughts can occur, how the mind works and how they can help themselves, generally, you see that light bulb moment in them. And the minute people realize that they can control something themselves, they feel empowered immediately, and they're already on the road to where they want to be.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, again, so this is like, there's a real parallel there in my business is once you tell someone that they can get out the back seat and take the steering wheel, they can drive, they can get themselves onto page 1 of Google, they're like, oh, I didn't realize. I thought I thought I was on the back foot here. I thought, I had to listen and do what I'm told. It's brilliant, and I suppose that's empowerment, isn't it?
Well,
but it's
yeah, I mean,
to see it happen.
I tell you what, we're thick on the metaphors today, Sarah, because I'm thinking, you're not selling fish, you're selling a fishing rod, and they can do it themselves.
We're selling fishing rods. Yeah,
exactly.
Care to throw a metaphor in, Denise?
Come on,
Denise. We've probably had quite sufficient before.
we haven't had enough, definitely.
Did you take the hypnotherapy training that you did out of curiosity, or?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean,
So you weren't expecting to launch a hypnotherapy practice. You just
no, I was just really, I just genuinely really interested in it, and I'd done my NLP training, and there was quite a bit, there was a lot of people did NLP training and hypnotherapy training, and but I just loved it. I just so fascinating, so powerful. Yeah, and I think the curiosity around hypnotherapy for me was, seeing the the stage hypnotherapists and all the kind of, and I was really curious to see how it could be something other than stage hypnotherapy, and I wanted to understand how and why it was, and that's why I wanted to do the training to understand. And then once I'd done the training, it was just like, oh my God, this is insane. That's brilliant.
Yeah, completely different. So you studied NLP as well?
Yeah. So I did master, up to master practitioner. So yeah, I mean, it's been something that, I started studying that again, not necessarily because I wanted to be an NLP practitioner, but I'd got really bad postnatal depression after I had my second child. And I went to the doctors, and I was in there for, I think, 5 minutes. I was given a packet of antidepressants and, sent on my merry way. I remember I went to the coffee shop with this new prescription in my hand, and I just looked at it and thought, oh, I don't want to do this. And now there's nothing wrong with antidepressants at all.
They
there's
can save lives.
Absolutely 100%. But I didn't need them. I needed someone to talk to me. I needed help. I needed conversations, and I needed connections and all that kind of stuff. I didn't need to be putting pills down my throat. And so I started, this is really like that whole exploration of the mind and thinking and thoughts. And I really managed to manage through learning about NLP, basically using myself as a test case, got myself out of that depression. Yeah.
But again, we're not dissing antidepressants.
100% not. They are absolutely,
it can be life-saving,
and they do the most incredible things when they're used in the right context. And there are a lot of things that can either complement them, or having longer conversations around people's real needs, I think, is important too.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. You've used the word we use there as well, complement them. Hypnotherapy, psychotherapy can really complement somebody who's on antidepressants and what have you. I think Denise and I both agree that they can be great. You know, they can be lifesavers.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely 100%. Yeah, they're essential. You know, just, yeah. I mean, it does say learning NLP was something that I found very empowering, and it brought me out of that whole.
Yeah, again, a lot of the stuff you learn when you learn NLP is about the thought processes in our mind and how we can take control of them. So again, it's that
as
thing
you were
about,
saying, you know, just getting myself really, like, I always describe it as getting myself off my back foot. That was really important to me. It was just like standing on my own 2 feet again, like standing tall, and that was okay. It was like, yeah, okay. And then, you know, my parents both died, and it was a really, really horrible, difficult time again. You know, bang, you know, NLP comes out. You know, it's a really amazing skill to have in your back pocket.
Yeah, I find a lot of people like NLP who say, "Oh, I'd never have hypnotherapy. I go for NLP," and it's like, well, there ain't a lot of difference between the two.
But again, it's interesting what the general public has decided it means. You know, hypnosis. It's the stuff they see on TV and movies with the swinging watches and the, yeah.
And it's interesting because it's really interesting. You know, and it's still there. It's funny, even with, what was his name, Paul McKenna, and I think he turned from stage to, you know, to proper hypnotherapy. And I still don't think it's been quite, you know, quite accepted as a you know, as the powerful tool it can be.
Yeah, well, that's it. For as long as there are stage hypnotists using it for entertainment, there will always be that association between the two. And yet, as you know yourself now, they are quite far removed. So
I think it's just so unique that it can have both sides to it. I mean, there's not you don't do kind of stage surgery, do you? Or I suppose they did in the past.
They used to. People used to come in and sit around the theatre.
Yeah, they did. That's why. Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
they did that stage autopsy on Channel 4 a couple of years ago, didn't they?
Yeah, this line's not working. The argument's not working, but yeah.
But the thing that is really nice is that some people in the medical profession know about it, and gradually more people will know about it. Martin's one of his other little branches of people who come to see him works alongside a hypnotherapy clinic, a regular psychiatry
clinic. Yeah, I work in a private therapy clinic where they've got 9 consultant psychiatrists, and they do in-house referrals to me for hypnotherapy. Generally for people who, one, have sort of like discussed it obviously with the psychiatrist, but where often CBT hasn't been a good fit for somebody, then they're willing to try hypnotherapy.
And I think this is so brilliant. And I think, you know, this is the start. This is where it's starting now, isn't it? You need to have psychiatrists referring to hypnotherapists. Of course you would. Yeah. You know, and speaking to Denise and seeing the work that she's doing with doctors and all that kind of stuff, it's really, I think, starting to gain momentum, and I think that's what's needed to make that switch, to make it, you know, a lot more mainstream. You know, like you know, hypnotherapy becomes something that you're prescribed.
I wish we could be called hypnosis technicians.
Yeah.
I wish that people would we're not in competition with other forms of therapy.
No, not at all. It complements the complementary therapies that are out there. It's like, especially when, you know, when people actually realize going for hypnotherapy is not a matter of just going there straight away and the hypnotist putting you into a state of hypnosis. The pre-talk is absolutely vital, you know, and that's when a lot of the work is done, a lot of the exploration is done, a lot of the you know, getting to know the client and empowering the client in that part of the session, and then you have the hypnosis. So.
But see, that's why I think the word hypnotherapy is a good one. That's how I.
Oh, it is. But we do have that
therapy element to it. It's not just hypnosis as such.
No,
in the US, America, it's a problem here. More and more states, the psychotherapy unions or whatever they are, object to us calling ourselves hypnotherapists. So officially, I'm a consulting hypnotist. because there are some states where I cannot be put forward, and obviously the internet goes everywhere.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
And it's so silly. You know, you have respiratory therapists, you have X-ray technicians, so I think
therapists.
Yes, exactly.
That's true.
We're not in competition.
It's just classic human beings, isn't it? Oh no, you know, like lack mentality.
Yeah. So tell me then, Sarah, because I'm going to keep chiseling away with this.
Okay,
one.
go on.
Now that I know that you trained as a hypnotherapist, how did you feel the first time you sent somebody into hypnosis in your training?
I didn't believe I'd done it.
Mm.
You know, because I was expecting them to be, well, again, you know, you expect them to be slumped on the chair, you know, and it was just like, it was not, no, underwhelming is not the word. It was very, I felt it was for me, it was a very calm kind of it. I felt, I knew when they'd gone, because there was this peace that came over, and it was like, and then the more times I did it, it was like that was what I learned to understand was the point at which we were ready to start. And some, depending on the person, obviously, you know, you think, you know, it does take different you know, lengths of time to reach that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until you've trained in hypnosis and you've been hypnotized by students, so often they suggest, would you like to be in hypnosis? Yes, please, clunk. It's so fast. It's so fast. Yeah. So many times.
But I think, and that goes back to what we were saying before, though, the trust, you know, like, you know, how important it is to have that initial conversation, to establish the trust first. Because again, if you don't establish that trust up front, my experience was then that took a lot longer to, you know, for someone to allow themselves to I don't know why I always call it go under, because to me
it's like anesthesia.
yeah, but it's like, but for me it was but it is almost like a slipping under the water. It's like that works for me as an image. It might not for lots of other people, but it was just that there's, you know, submitting to it, you know, that whole kind of, you know, but trust is a huge element of that.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And talking of trust, Sarah, okay, yes. Denise and I will both shout this from the rooftops. Your clients can absolutely trust you. So if somebody's interested in SEO, please explain a little bit to them about it and how they can get in touch with you, because believe it or not, we're almost at the end of the episode.
Oh God, I love talking.
The information will be in the show notes.
Yes, as well.
Yeah, so, you know, I very much work with people who are SEO curious, who, you know, who've heard of it, who know they ought to be doing something about it, but really don't have haven't got the first clue where to start. You know, they've maybe had a stab around and they've backed out quickly because I think, oh my God,
overwhelmed.
It's like, whoa.
It's all the acronyms, I think.
It's all the nonsense and pressing funky buttons on Google Analytics and going, oh my God, I'm going to break my website. So what I do is, you know, I got, you know, a very, very structured approach. You know, this is where we start. This is what you do next. It's step by step, hand holding all the way through, basically with, you know, the ultimate goal is to get the people I work with to optimize their websites, to optimize their content so that they start showing up on the first page of Google. And there's this stat I love, 97.6% of people have websites that aren't optimized. So, you know, it's, you know, 96.7% of pages don't show up on the internet. You know, so I can help you get yourself out there, get yourself showing up on the first page of Google, because actually there isn't a huge amount of competition when you think about it. If only 3% of people are actually optimizing them. So
that's really interesting, Sarah.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say then, okay, if somebody can write a letter in Word and save it, you can teach them how to SEO their website?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I can show them how to get that document showing up on the first page of Google, because again, quick geeky stat, only less than 1% of people ever look at anything on page 2 or position and beyond, right? It has to be on page 1 or else you will not get seen.
And you're already pushed down the page because of all the ads that are there now.
Exactly. So, write yourself a Word document, come and talk to me. I'll show you how to structure it, set it all up on your website so that it's optimized and it will start showing up on page 1 and actually get seen. All that blood, sweat and tears is actually rewarded.
Right. It's also one of the most important things about understanding what it is you're asking your website to do is if you want to have somebody else do stuff for you, you have to know whether what you're asking them to do is doable.
Of course.
So, and frankly, with some people, if you're being taken as an idiot, can't think of the right expression.
And this is the thing. There you go. You're intimidated. You don't know the language. Some bloke comes along and says, "Oh yeah, it's going to cost you 800 quid," and you go, "Okay." You don't have any idea whether
I have to.
Yeah, they don't have any idea whether they've actually done the work for you. And 99% of the time, you're massively underwhelmed by the results. Going back to our empowerment talk, if you can do it, if you know how to do that, you save yourself tons of money. And you know what to do if you ever do want to, start outsourcing it to people.
Yeah, you can check up on them.
Yeah,
Make sure they're doing it right.
You can. I mean, you can be checking up, but or you
can have a conversation between equals.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Conversation of equals. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Right. Thank you, Sarah, so much for coming on. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very
we
much.
Both missed you very much, but it's one of the downsides of having a business that works once you've got a big website that works.
We hope you've enjoyed listening. Please remember, this podcast is designed to give you an insight into therapeutic hypnosis and is for educational purposes only. So remember, consult with your own healthcare professional if you think something you've heard may apply to you or a loved one.
If you found this episode useful, you can apply for free continuing professional development or CME credits using the link provided in the show notes. Feel free to contact either of us through the links in the show notes. Join us again next week.